The lion lay where the grass bent inward, its stems pressed flat in a wide, uneven circle that suggested prolonged struggle rather than rest. From a distance, his body blended with the savanna's muted tones, tawny hide broken by shadow and stalk. What drew attention was not movement but the lack of it. His chest rose only slightly, each breath shallow and irregular, as though air were something he had to negotiate for rather than take freely. The stillness felt deliberate, imposed by necessity rather than calm. At first, nothing obvious announced danger. There was no blood visible, no frantic motion, no sound beyond a faint rasp that carried only when the wind shifted just right. It was a low, dry sound, barely audible, the kind that could be mistaken for grass rubbing against itself. But the longer one watched, the more the details refused to align with rest. His head was angled awkwardly, neck muscles taut, jaw held just open enough to ease breathing. One foreleg twitched once, then went still, the movement small but strained. The grass around him told more than his body did. It was flattened in looping patterns that did not follow the paths of hooves or the clean lines of a chase. The coils cut across the ground in overlapping arcs, heavy and deliberate, pressing vegetation into the soil. They did not belong to this landscape, not in this arrangement. Where the grass parted, a thick, scaled form was partially visible, its surface dull in the light, unmoving now but unmistakable in shape. The lion's flank lay close to it, too close. Silence settled over the scene in a way that felt weighted. The usual distant sounds of the savanna, birds, insects, the shifting of small animals, were subdued as if the space itself were holding still. The lion did not react to nearby movement or scent. His ears remained flattened not in warning, but in fatigue, pinned by strain rather than intention. Each breath came with a slight tremor through his ribs, the effort visible beneath the skin. What had happened here was not marked by chaos, but by containment. The struggle had already passed its loudest moment. Whatever energy had been spent was gone now, leaving only the aftermath. The coils around him were slack, no longer actively constricting, but their presence explained the posture of his body, the way his torso was angled to avoid pressure, the careful stillness as if movement might worsen what could not be undone. Approaching was done slowly, with attention paid to the ground, to the line of the grass, to the angle of the lion's head. There was no response when footsteps shifted closer. His eyes were open, dulled, tracking nothing in particular. When a shadow crossed his face, his pupils adjusted sluggishly. He made no sound in acknowledgement, no attempt to lift his head. The rasping breath continued, uneven, patient in its own way. One quiet voice broke the stillness, soft and low, meant more to steady the moment than to communicate. "Easy," it said, then fell silent again. The word lingered briefly, then dissolved into the air. The lion's breathing did not change. His body remained where it was, heavy and pinned by exhaustion rather than force. The coils lay motionless beside him, part of the ground now, their threats spent or withdrawn. The danger was no longer active, but its mark remained in the way the lion held himself, in the careful economy of breath, in the stillness that had replaced struggle. Above, the grass shifted as a light wind passed through, bending and lifting, restoring movement to the landscape even as the lion remained quiet, suspended in the aftermath as the day continued around him. The coils became clearer as the angle of light shifted. Their full reach revealed not all at once, but in segments, each curve tightening the understanding of what had happened. The python's body wrapped the lion's torso in deliberate, measured loops, thick muscle layered over itself, each section placed where expansion of the chest would be most costly. The pressure was not frantic. It was precise, sustained, and patient, shaped by instinct rather than urgency. The lion remained conscious, though his movements were reduced to small adjustments that traveled slowly through his body. When his muscles tightened, it happened in waves rather than bursts, strength gathering and releasing without escalation. A hind leg pushed weakly against the ground, toes spreading, then curling back into the soil. The effort produced little change. The coils did not shift. They responded only with subtle contraction, a quiet answer to resistance. A low sound escaped the lion's chest, not a roar, not even a warning. It was a brief moan, rough and involuntary, pulled from him as breath met pressure. His jaw opened slightly wider afterward, as if to compensate, as if to find space where none remained. The sound faded quickly, absorbed by the grass, leaving behind only the uneven rhythm of breathing. The python's head was not immediately visible. Its body did the work without display, muscle moving beneath patterned scales that caught the light in dull flashes. Each breath the lion managed caused a slight tightening in response, not sudden but attentive. The snake did not rush. It waited, allowing exhaustion to accumulate, allowing resistance to diminish on its own. The lion's eyes remained open, focused somewhere low and forward. They did not track the coils or search for escape. Instead, they reflected strain, the narrowing of attention to breath and balance. His shoulders pressed into the ground, fur flattened beneath his weight. A tremor passed through his side when he attempted to shift again, the motion ending before it began, halted by the unyielding pressure around his ribs. There was no chaos in the moment. No thrashing, no sharp movement. The struggle had become internal, measured in muscle tension and controlled release. The lion's tail lay still, the tip resting against crushed grass. His ears were angled back, not flattened in threat, but drawn inward, conserving energy, filtering sound to only what was necessary. A single voice, low and steady, carried briefly across the space. "Stay with me," it said, softly, without urgency. The words did not demand response. They existed only as sound, then faded. The lion did not turn his head. His breathing continued, shallow but present, each inhale carefully earned. The python's coils held firm, their placement unchanged. Where the snake's body crossed itself, the pressure was greatest, designed to limit movement with minimal effort. The savanna around them remained calm. Grass swayed gently, insects moved through stems, the broader world unconcerned with the balance being held in that small, compressed space. As minutes passed, the lion's resistance softened further. His muscles still engaged, but the intervals between effort lengthened. Breath came slower now, deeper but strained, each rise of the chest met with immediate containment. The moment stretched, suspended between motion and stillness, not driven by force but by endurance. Nothing resolved quickly. Life here balanced on patience, on the slow negotiation between strength and time, while the grass whispered quietly in the wind and the light shifted almost imperceptibly, marking the passing of moments the lion could no longer afford to rush. The man did not enter the space suddenly. His approach was marked by pauses, by weight placed carefully through the soles of his boots, by an awareness of how easily the balance before him could tip in the wrong direction. The grass parted softly at his knees as he moved, never faster than a steady walk, never closing distance without first allowing the air to settle. His body remained angled, not squared toward the lion, reducing his presence to something less confrontational, less demanding. The python's coils were fully visible now, wrapped with practiced certainty around the lion's torso. The lion lay within them, not struggling, not yielding entirely, but holding himself in a narrow state between effort and collapse. His breathing remained shallow, ribs pressing outward only to be met by resistance. When the man drew closer, the lion's eyes shifted slightly, registering motion without alarm. There was no lift of the head, no baring of teeth. The response was quieter than that. The muscles along his shoulders tightened briefly, then eased. The man stopped several steps away and lowered himself slowly, bringing his height down to reduce the difference between them. His hands stayed open, empty, resting near his knees. He watched the rhythm of the lion's breath, the subtle movement of the coils, the way tension traveled through both bodies. This was not a moment for speed. Any sudden change could provoke reflex, and reflex here could cost more than it saved. His voice entered the space gently, barely louder than the wind moving through grass. "Easy now," he said, the words unforced, not directed at dominance or control but at continuity. The sound existed only briefly before dissolving. The lion did not flinch. Instead, his breathing slowed by a fraction, the pauses between inhales lengthening just enough to notice. Intervention came without ceremony. The man shifted his weight again, reaching only when his movement aligned with a lull in tension, when both lion and snake were momentarily still. His actions were precise, restrained, guided by timing rather than strength. He did not pull at the coils all at once. He worked where pressure could be eased incrementally, creating space without triggering resistance. The python responded with subtle adjustment, muscle tightening reflexively, then releasing just enough as the pattern of pressure changed. It was not confusion but recalculation. The man maintained his pace, never forcing the moment forward, allowing the sequence to unfold without escalation. His breathing matched the steadiness he was trying to maintain, slow and deliberate. The lion remained quiet through it all. His body did not surge or recoil. Instead, he grew stiller, conserving what little energy remained. When a small pocket of space opened near his chest, his breath deepened slightly, the change visible in the lift of fur along his ribs. His eyes remained open, no longer dulled, now tracking the man's hands with careful attention. There was no fear in the gaze, only awareness. A low sound passed through the lion's throat, softer than before, more breath than voice. It was not a plea or a warning, simply a release of strain as pressure eased momentarily. The man paused at once, letting the sound pass, letting the lion adjust. Nothing here was rushed. Each second was allowed its full weight. As more space was created, the coils loosened in response, not collapsing but withdrawing their hold. The python's body shifted away from the lion's torso, sliding through the grass with quiet purpose, its movement controlled and unhurried. The danger receded not through force, but through timing that respected the instincts of both animals. The lion did not rise. He remained where he was, breathing more evenly now, his body heavy against the earth. The man stayed close but not intrusive, his presence steady and unchanged. Around them, the grass moved again as the wind returned, lifting flattened blades back toward the light. The air carried the soft sounds of the savanna resuming itself, while the lion lay still, sensing that something had shifted, not through dominance but through restraint. The shift in the grass came first, subtle and directional, bending not with the wind but against it. The python had already withdrawn several lengths away, its body sliding back into cover with unhurried purpose, leaving behind a disturbed patch of earth and a lion still pressed low to the ground. The man remained still, his posture unchanged, aware that the moment had not ended, only transformed. From the brush, shapes resolved slowly into form. One lion emerged, then another, then three more, their bodies stepping out of concealment with controlled precision. They did not rush. Each placed their paws carefully, shoulders rolling in smooth, economical motion. They spread into a loose half-circle, stopping at a measured distance from the fallen lion and the man beside him. No sound accompanied their arrival. No warning, no call, no display. Their attention was fixed, not sharp but steady. Ears forward, tails low, bodies aligned toward the center of the clearing. They did not bare teeth or lower their heads. They simply watched. The injured lion lifted his gaze slightly, eyes meeting theirs in brief, quiet acknowledgement before settling again. His breathing remained slow, deeper now, the rise and fall of his chest no longer arrested by pressure. The man did not move. He understood the balance had shifted again, and that any action now could fracture what had formed. His presence was known but not challenged. The lion's focus passed over him without lingering, as if he were part of the landscape rather than an intrusion. Their concern belonged to the one on the ground. The closest lion took a single step forward, then stopped. Muscles held in readiness not for attack but for response. A low sound moved through the group, barely audible, more vibration than voice. It carried no urgency. It was an assessment shared and received. The others remained where they were, their bodies forming a quiet boundary. The injured lion shifted his foreleg, testing weight, then letting it rest again. The movement was small but it drew attention. The nearest lion lowered his head slightly, not in dominance but alignment. Their eyes met for a moment longer this time, and something eased in the space between them. No exchange needed sound. The man slowly leaned back, increasing the distance by inches rather than steps. His hands stayed open, visible. He did not turn away fully, but he did not hold the center either. The lions did not follow his movement. Their interest remained fixed inward on their own. The python was gone now, its presence reduced to flattened grass and the memory of tension. The savanna began to reclaim the space. Insects returned to motion. A bird called once from a distant tree, then fell silent again. The wind moved through the clearing, lifting scent and sound, carrying them outward. One of the lions sat back on its haunches. Another lay down, forepaws crossed, posture relaxed but attentive. The half-circle softened, becoming something less defined, more fluid. The injured lion released a long breath, the sound barely more than air passing through throat and teeth. His body settled deeper into the earth, supported now by familiarity rather than pressure. The man rose slowly to his feet, retreating without haste. He did not speak again. The lions allowed the movement, their gaze following briefly, then returning to the center. When the man reached the edge of the grass and stopped, he turned once more. The group remained, quiet and present, surrounding their own. As the light lowered and lengthened across the savanna, shadows stretched and blended. The grass whispered as it straightened itself. In the center of the clearing, the lions stayed where they were, breathing together, the moment passing without signal or sound, held briefly in stillness before dissolving back into the larger rhythm of the land. The lion did not rise all at once. His body gathered itself in stages, weight shifting forward, then back, testing what remained reliable. His forelegs pressed into the ground, muscles engaging slowly, cautiously, as if remembering their purpose. When he lifted his chest, it was with effort, the movement deliberate rather than strong. He paused there, breathing, allowing the moment to settle before asking more of himself. The others waited. None stepped in to hurry him. Their presence formed a quiet assurance around him, close enough to matter, distant enough to allow space. When he finally stood, his legs trembled briefly, then steadied. His head remained low, neck extended forward as he found balance. The grass brushed his underside as he took a single step, then another, each one careful but real. He moved toward them, not breaking the loose formation that had gathered, but folding back into it. One lion shifted aside to make room. Another fell in step behind him. There was no greeting, no contact beyond proximity, yet the alignment was unmistakable. The group began to move as one, their pace slow, unforced, adjusted to the weakest among them. They turned toward the open plain where the grass thinned and the land stretched outward, uninterrupted. The lion walked there with them, his gait uneven but sustained, each stride carrying him farther from the place where his body had been held still. The savanna accepted their passage without remark. Stems bent and lifted again. Dust rose briefly beneath their paws, then settled. No sound followed them. There was no call exchanged, no signal given. Only the wind moved through the grass, brushing against fur and earth alike. Somewhere beyond sight, birds lifted and crossed the sky, their wings cutting softly through the air. The lions continued forward, their shapes gradually separating from detail into silhouette as distance increased. Behind them, the space they had occupied emptied itself. The flattened grass remained, marking where pressure had once been held, but even that began to soften as the breeze passed over it. Insects resumed their paths. The land closed gently around the absence. The humans did not follow. They remained where they were, standing at the edge of the clearing, their bodies still, their attention lingering without expectation. What they carried was not triumph or relief, but something quieter and heavier. An awareness of proximity to something that had not belonged to them, and yet had briefly included them. They did not speak. Words felt unnecessary, ill-fitted to the shape of what had unfolded. Each adjusted their stance, feeling the ground beneath their feet, the wind against their skin. The moment did not ask to be explained. It asked only to be held, then released. As the lions reached the rise that opened onto the plain, they did not look back. Their movement remained steady, their spacing natural, the injured lion still among them, still walking. The horizon widened ahead, light thinning as afternoon leaned toward evening. Grass moved in long, quiet waves across the land. A distant call carried once, then faded. The humans turned away slowly, leaving the clearing to the wind and the settling light, carrying with them the quiet weight of what they had been allowed to witness, as the savanna resumed its endless, unspoken rhythm.